Hey, drunk mythology friends. I'm Kate.
And I'm the other Jen.
And I'm Kim, and there it is. And I'm Kim, and I'm armed with the only weapon I'll ever need.
Same. We are the sisters of the safety pin, but really, we are the drunk
Dracula gals.
Dracula gals.
Gross.
And I think this is the last time we're saying it this year, at least.
Aww. Yeah.
But, this isn't exactly chapter 28, but it's not an appendix. It's more like appendicitis.
Yeah, I've got some time-release morphine that we can dip into for that.
Morphine-tober. That's what we're going to do.
Saving the best for last.
Right. Because you know what? Here we go. We're not going anywhere because we're done.
Yes.
Wow.
It's the last recap.
Oh, I'm going to miss this. No lie.
No lie. All right. Because here we go. It's the recap for chapter 27. I mean, we knew how it was going to go down, right? But hey, if you want to take 20 out of 28 pages to go over, again, the anxiety of just traveling to try and catch up, and again, how Dear Madam Mina, drink, is both turning out to be a lousy transmitter and into a vampire, we get Transylvanian Girls Gone Wild, except Mina doesn't get a chance because Van Helsing is such a goddamn cult leader cockblocker.
Word.
And because these women dare to exhibit open sexuality, Van Helsing naturally has to drive a stake through their hearts, cut off their heads, and fill their mouths with garlic. But because Stroker can't help himself, we actually have to finish with a flourishing racist salute to the Romany, who just have to kill off one decent character, R.I.P. Quincy Morris. I hope you and Renfield are smoking some good cigars or anything else and exchanging good hunting stories in the great literary beyond. Oh, and Dracula dies too, but whatever. Anyway, can or not because it's done.
Yay!
So, I mean, I think people more know this book than really have read it recently. So we were talking about what surprised us rereading it this time. So, Kate, why don't you kick off?
I guess to me, I first read Dracula, I think when I was like a senior in high school.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So at first I was like, wow, they actually allow a female character to go along with the guys on the adventure.
Mina definitely had agency.
Yeah. I mean, she even pulled a gun at the end.
Yeah.
But, now reading it, I mean, all the gratuitous racism and anti-Semitism aside, what actually kind of jumps out at me is I remember that this was published in 1897. So there's this whole kind of fin de siècle anxiety of, always when a century comes to an end, there's, a little bit of doomsdayism, and
Y2K was the thing.
Even more.
Okay.
And, but also you have all this new technology like the telephone, the telegraph, just think of how often Van Helsing is traveling back and forth to Amsterdam, and that it's going to take them 3 days to get to from London to Varna, and there's kind of just this existential dread of living to see your entire world change. And I think all of us, being women of a certain age, we may be the last generation that actually grew up without the internet.
Yeah.
Right.
Or cable or microwaves.
Yeah. Or cell phones. Cell phones, I think. The GPS in my cell phone, I think, has changed my life more than anything else because I have zero sense of direction. And now I'm not afraid to just get in my car and go someplace.
Right?
So that's huge. So one of the things that that really stuck out to me, I mean, we made fun of the book the entire time we were reading it, is how the attention span of the reader has changed.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't put this down and scroll through your phone for 15 minutes or watch watch Forged in Fire on TV and see how they make knives. This was your entertainment for the evening. So you wanted something that's exactly. I think you were looking for something as a reader that was slow moving, that was atmospheric, that would suck you in. And, he did that. It's not, it's not modern. I think I mean, I hesitate to say it's not the best book I ever read, but I think it's
no,
of
I'd
its,
agree with that.
I think of its time. He did what he set out to do, which was to create something more atmospheric, really, than anything else.
And I noticed that they, he and a lot of other authors of that era spent a lot of time doing descriptions in a way
which has
that
also really fallen out of favor.
Yeah, and that's because we can Google that shit.
Yeah.
And in those days, you had to try to imagine mountains, but really tall and jagged ones. And he had to guide you sort of step by step through the imagery.
And a lot of his readers had never been to those places and didn't know what they looked like.
And most of them probably talk like Mr. Swales.
Exactly.
What about you, Jen?
So I haven't made any secret that I didn't grow up as a reader. That was not my thing. Well, outside of religious books, I was reading the Chronicles
The Re-Education
of
of Other Jen coming in 2023.
Yes. So my first time reading this, I kind of played like this was the first time, but it wasn't. This was only my second time reading it. And the first time was only about 2 years ago. Oh, and it was talking with you, Kate, talking about Dracula and the vampires and all of that. And I was like, okay, let me see what this book is all about. Let me see what all the hype is. And my husband, he's like, you're not going to read Dracula. That's a horror. And I'm like, well, let's see. And so I start reading and I'm like, this is so fucking boring. Oh my God. And I'm reading it on my phone. I'm scrolling. And yes, as Kim talked about, the attention span of the reader. I came into reading in the past decade where everything that I devour moves at a much faster pace. They're not spending pages and pages on description because it's understood that I know the hustle and bustle of a New York City street as you're trying to weave through the crowds. You can sum that up with just those few words, and the image is in everyone's mind. They don't need all the extra. So the story progresses a whole lot faster. And that's, to me, this was, okay, let me slow down. And in the first reading, I probably missed a ton that reading it this time around, it kind of was like reading it for the first time because you guys slowed the whole process down.
If you can imagine slowing this book down.
Doing it, limiting it to one chapter a day. And it's been, well, okay, we've cheated. We've recorded, 2 a day, but
we pre-recorded some of these.
Yeah. It's, when we're reading it in this manner, I have to pay attention. I can't skim. And so I did pick up a lot.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to pinpoint anything that stood out because it all stood out.
Yeah. I think reading it, I didn't really absorb, I probably skimmed it. I didn't really absorb how badly Renfield was abused and treated.
Yeah.
I didn't really absorb that Lord Godalming really was kind of a coward. I didn't really absorb that Jonathan was deeply post-traumatic stress disordered.
Right.
And that he was, what the hell was Quincy even doing there? He barely knew those people. But doing it this way,
Salute you,
got
Quincy.
to know, right, we really got to learn who these people were because we were forced to slow down. And I think that might have been the experience of the reader when it was produced originally.
And actually, one last thing on my part was, so one of the things, like, I go through these little phases where for a couple of months I'll just like dive so deep into one topic or another topic, and at one point
that's actually a syndrome. You should look into it.
Yeah, there's probably medication for that, or more of this. But during the pandemic, I got really, really into like studying cults, and especially like Jonestown, because I think I must have been like 4 or 5 when Jonestown actually like went down, and my mom remembers it. And I was listening to podcasts and audiobooks, and then I started with the way politics and belief and everything has sort of spiraled out of control,
Yeah.
I started noticing like that there's a lot of cultishness in our world today. And
one might say.
Yeah.
But Van Helsing is a fucking cult leader. Like, he is doing everything step by step. He is introducing new vocabulary. He is breaking them down. He is forcing them to do terrible things more and more, so that even if they want to get out, there's no real way to get out without implicating yourself in, I don't know, 3 unexplained deaths, you know? But
the withholding of information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just his behavior like really set my hackles up.
Particularly, we see this at the end when he's forced to kill the 3 women. He kills Lucy also, and he was prepared to kill Mina. So I think you can easily see him as that Abrahamic figure standing between women's sexuality and the good and pure rest of society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And especially because it wasn't, he only hesitates in the moment when those women's sexuality was directed at him.
Right.
Right.
So he's basically the bad guy.
Wasn't it Arthur that killed Lucy? Wasn't he the one that was?
Yes.
Yes. You're
another
right. You're
point. You made a mention of this at some point. I think it was up until we had the scene with Dracula and Mina. There's things before that scene, and then there's after that scene. You picked up that after that scene, there was just the whole.
There was a lot of shoehorning of religion.
Yes, the whole filter of Catholicism, Christianity, it was so religious.
I kind of wonder if that was maybe the voice of the editor.
Maybe.
Because seems... Well, when he came out of his stupor from rocking quietly in the corner and he read this, he's like, shit, this ain't going to pass the censors.
But then
we got to get God in here.
If you remember, before that scene, there were so many mentions of mythology.
Mm-hmm.
As Arthur is pounding that stake into Lucy's heart, he makes the analogy of Thor with Mjolnir.
You're right.
That's right.
And Van Helsing talks frequently about these are the superstitions and there may be some truth to them. And then that kind of just got put aside.
Mm-hmm. Because we're still Victorian. And if we're going to have kissing and people in their night clothes who are not married, then we either have to mark this as a forbidden book or put a lot of God in there.
To make up for it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I kind of start to see the hand of an editor saying, okay, and here would be a good place to put God. Here would be a good place to put God. Because it feels in some ways very shoehorned at the end of every remark. They're like, Mina's like, oh, this is so terrible. I'm unclean.
I'm tainted.
But it's as God wills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems like very jarring, but.
Yeah.
So, I know we've all had a lot of things going on this month.
Oh my God, have we ever?
True fact.
Yeah, it's been a challenge recording. What have you guys felt with this little adventure of?
You know what? I have actually loved it, and I've not worked in an office for a number of years. I write full time, and I've been writing in the morning and working with you guys and recording, which is my first career, in the afternoon. So I keep telling Dion, my husband, how much I love having these different things to do during the day. So I thoroughly enjoyed it.
For me, I had a lot of stressful things going on this week, this month, this year, this pandemic.
Yeah.
And I've talked about some of it, plenty. This has been a much needed step away from all of that. A nice little escape. And it's been, you know what? This stuff, it'll be what it'll be.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
It's in God's hands.
It's in God's hands.
Hashtag day drinking. That's my story. I'm sticking with it.
I'm not saying what time of day we've been recording all of this. Yeah.
Oh, they can guess. Anyway, so
what about you, Kate?
Me, I've been busy just trying to, do the production and social media, and
she is the Van Helsing of our group. She
So
definitely is the chief cheerleader and
I
in charge.
I have the idea for the podcast, huh?
You just wanted to use that accent. Tell the truth. So on the first day that we did this, I was like, I think Mina should be from Staten Island. And you were like, yeah, that's a great idea. I hope that nobody was offended and it wasn't a terrible decision.
I mean,
who was it? You said you made a parallel to the character on
Bob's Burgers. After a while, I realized that I was impersonating Linda Belcher.
Yes, and it's absolutely spot on.
Thank you very much.
I love her.
I was like, just imagine that Linda's telling you a ghost story.
Yes.
Take it from there.
But I know for a fact that Kim has been in the final throes of working on the edits of her latest book, which is coming out when?
December 13th, assuming I finish it. No, I will. I believe in me. The series
right, you have the face of Van Helsing behind you.
Oh my God, now I'm full of terror. The series is called New World Magic, as opposed to Old World Magic, which we have been just discussing for the last month. And it's a story set in Washington, D.C. about a bartender. And the first chapter, bartender named Ruby, who on her way home from work one morning saves the life of a unicorn who is a unicorn shifter. And they have adventures and the Fae get involved. And the fourth book is called A Poisoned Garden. And it comes out December 13th. And there are vampires in this series, although they're neither
don't sparkle.
They don't sparkle. They're not sexy Anne Rice vampires, which was really my high school introduction to everything a vampire ought to be.
Oh my God, the Queen of the Damned.
I was just about old enough to get the subtext when I started reading those books. And I love them dearly, and I love her work. But my vampires are disgusting because they're dead. They smell terrible.
They're trash vampires.
They're trash vampires, but they're used by the the Xeno community, which is what the fairy tale creatures call each other and themselves. Xeno being Latin for stranger.
Which I love the fact that you've sort of just built them into some sort of normalcy, coexisting with everybody.
Everything can't be, crazy when you're trying. Even though you may be a troll, you still got to send your kids to preschool, so they got to get their vaccinations, right?
Right.
They're just trying to live their lives. So they are used by the vampires are used by messengers because they will do literally anything because they're all nuts because there's not much left up there. Because they get paid in blood, and that's really all they want. So there are vampires in this book in small roles, although one role is actually rather larger. But
we'll leave that. Has a lot of reverb to it.
Yes, which continues.
Yeah.
So the question I ask in this book is, what would you do if there were these fairy tale creatures that are suddenly real and they live next door to you? Would you want that? Well, I guess if they were beautiful, maybe that'd be fine. But if they were,
what if they're not? Yeah.
What if they're not? What if they're dangerous? How would you feel about them then? So there's a lot of tension in the community between the human mortal society and then the Xeno society is something else. And then the Fae society, we've got the Seelie Court and the Unseelie Court, which I love them all so much because you could, you can have so many things play out
gorgeous.
In those. Yeah. And world building is one of my favorite things to do. So I get to do quite a bit of that.
Fucking
You're
well.
the best.
So amazing.
Thank
world
you.
building.
I love you. I love you guys.
Yeah.
So anyway, the whole series, books 1, 2, and 3 are out, and book 4, A Poisoned Garden, comes out on December 13th.
And you can find me at the links and everything to all of it.
KimAlexanderOnline.com. I'm easy to find. I'm everywhere, wherever books are sold.
Yes.
And thank you, Kate, for dragging me into this. I had the best time.
I am so glad you didn't run screaming at any point. And even if you did, you allowed me to drag you back. So I did want to share that once I read Dracula, I kind of got into reading different versions and explorations. And recently I came across a couple of really good sort of side retellings like not an actual Dracula retelling, but there's one
using that as a jumping off point.
Yeah, there's a book called The Dracula Dossier, which
Oh.
fictionalizes Bram Stoker
Oh.
in his journey of writing Dracula. And it uses the same sort of diary and memoranda and telegram receipt sort of structure. And it also embraces a lot of the, occult history that was happening at the time. Like in the 1890s, you had a lot of like golden what was it, the Golden Temple or something like that. It was sort of like a pseudo occult satanic society that was like big in London, and it ties that and 19th century lunatic asylums and the theater community, and like it brings a lot of the threads. It's as if we're following Stoker through imagining how his plot was going to come together.
Cool.
It's really, really good.
Interesting.
So it's called The Dracula Dossier. And then I read a book called Dracula, which is by, and I'm going to butcher her name, but Darcy Stoker, who is an actual descendant of Bram.
Oh, I've actually spoken to, when I was at XM, I worked on book radio and interviewed people. I got to talk to Dacre Stoker, who is
Dacre. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought it was Darcy. But...
It's a guy, Dacre Stoker. Yeah.
Okay. So he wrote Dracula, which starts with sort of Stoker's childhood in potato famine Dublin.
Oh, wow.
And it's so good. And then the other book that I absolutely adore is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova.
I didn't like that book at all.
Really?
Did not like. I thought every single character had exactly the same voice.
Oh,
interesting.
A 16-year-old girl and a Van Helsing-esque character. Everybody spoke the same. Didn't like it.
Okay,
I didn't very much in the minority because it was a very popular book.
Yeah, I found that it was a little slow in parts, but also like I loved the thoroughness of the plot and the research, because every single thing, even though it seems so minor, is like it feeds into this big thing. I'll have to go back and look at their voices, but interesting, because I have that on my shelf of fiction I would save in a fire.
Okay.
And then finally, I really enjoyed the Castlevania series on Netflix.
That was the hottest thing I have ever seen.
Seriously.
Do I need to watch this?
That was hot like fire. I recommend it to everyone. It was so great.
Yeah, it's hot. It's gory.
It's not for the kids.
It's
definitely not for the kids.
Is this going to be too gory for me? Because I don't.
I will need to tell you when to close your eyes.
It's anime splashes of blood, but
yeah,
it was
it's
so
a cartoon,
good.
But
okay,
I think the second season is when we really start to get the like. Although the Alucard Belmont fight at the end of the first season, I can see that. I can dig it.
So hot. And
then also, in the public domain, there's Dracula's Guest, which is also written by Bram Stoker.
Oh, I never even heard of that.
Mm-hmm. It's a little fan fiction he did of his own work.
Bless.
And Carmilla.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
And if you've ever read that, you're like, oh my God, how did I miss all the lesbian subtext in it?
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's not even subtext.
Not even.
Wow.
But yeah. You guys have any vampire stuff that you followed?
Well, we already mentioned Anne Rice. I haven't started the AMC series yet, but Anne's work was a big influence on my own. I think her use of language is so luscious and delicious. I mean, she went off on crazy tangents and involved aliens and Atlantis and whatnot. But the first 3 books were just so beautiful
and so well. Like she, usually when you have like. Before the 90s, say, authors tend to forget what they wrote in books 1 and 2 by the time they get to book 3.
I can testify. What color did that person's eyes have? I have no idea.
That's why I believe in proofreading pages. Part of the story Bible. But anyway, yeah, that's a whole other topic. But she actually had the real continuity going through all of it. And it was so beautiful.
One thing I thought was very interesting about her is how she got bored with Lewis and fell in love with Lestat. And I call that Lestat syndrome, when a secondary character just takes over and they, It happens a lot.
Sasha.
Oh my God, how did you know? It happened to me. It happened to me. I'm unclean.
Forever unclean.
I'm forever. I'm tainted. Ew.
Yeah. So I've also been keeping notes just for your interest on all the things we've sort of said, that's weird, or whatever that means.
Right.
And I feel like I'm going to do a big old roundup deep dive.
Okay.
On everything from the aerated bread company to the hotchpotch to the traveler's typewriter. And also at some point, Lord Byron.
Yes.
Because who knows, maybe next year we'll do Frankenstein.
Is that public domain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay. I mean, I figure it probably would be. It's old.
Yeah. That's...
Yeah.
Cool.
So, is that another epistolary novel?
I don't know if it's epistolatory.
Epistolatory, excuse me.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I guess we'll find out.
You know, I remember being surprised that Frankenstein was the doctor and not the monster.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Frankenstein. Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah. So there we go. We did it.
So what are we going to do with our afternoons now? Well, I guess I could finish my book.
Yeah. I could get to work on the other episodes. But yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I'll be just trying to catch up on all the other tasks.
We're here for you.
Yeah.
I might clean my
Not
house
actually, but we're here for you.
too. There
Oh,
you go.
and I have to feed the cats and vacuum, which I haven't done since we started doing this. The cats are on strike.
Vacuum, what's that? So, yeah.
This was fun. I really had a lot of fun doing this.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, somebody wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, we still have the Patreon. It's a few more days.
That's right. Because that $1 offer that expires, it goes away November 1st. You're out of luck. So you got to
Get in
jump
there.
on that October 31st. And you can continue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like you just have until the end of October. It's you have to join by October 31st. And after that, it locks down. And so
That's right. So
you'll get
in the club.
Yeah.
Get in the cult.
Yeah. And so we have all of our other Lit Crit episodes over there. And there was mention of Little Mermaid that came up in one of these chapters. And we cover that over there.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I wrote it for everybody.
Yes.
Because if you've never read the original Little Mermaid,
You're in for a surprise.
Oh, boy.
yeah. Let me tell you about Hans Christian Andersen. I actually didn't he mention Hans Andersen?
He
Yeah,
did.
he said it was his friend.
Hans Andersen.
The duckling, the ugly duckling. Yeah.
That's
I don't remember
right.
what that was an analogy for, but it was.
I don't
This
remember
plot
either,
was the
but it
big
doesn't matter.
swan, not the little duck.
Right.
It is an analogy. Do you not understand? But
Yep,
you know what
so-
you can understand? You can follow us on social media.
No, let me go back to our social media page here so I can
Yeah,
help you with that.
that's right. So we are on Instagram at Drunk Mythology Gals.
On Twitter at Drunk Myth Gals.
On the web at drunkmythologygals.com.
We're on TikTok at Drunk Mythology Gals.
And you can email us, gals at drunkmythologygals.com. We might not check email, but you can email us.
That's
Worth a
right.
try.
And thanks again for joining us for this crazy journey.
Yay,
Please
thank you.
subscribe, leave a rating, a review, and tell your friends and family about us, especially if they're like, hey, I hear you have a new interest in classic literature. Have you ever read Frankenstein?
No.
Finally, always remember, if the undead can behave badly, then
So
so can
can
you.
So can you.
So can you.